All right, so let's go back. Let's see, I came up with the name in 2004. I was studying jazz at school, and I had all my, other influences and things like that, and I started writing. Songs started to come out, and I came up with the name. I came up with the whole sort of idea, I guess, which was writing pop rock music that was also a little bit more going on, from like jazz fusion, Latin jazz. So, and I was a huge theory, harmonic, nerd. That's sort of where a lot of it came from, and I started writing songs. And then in 2005, I met a guy I went to school with, a guy named Mike McGarity. And Mike is out in LA now, and he's a hotshot producer. He's worked with Lana Del Rey, he's worked with all sorts of people, Grammy nominated, amazing producer. I'm super proud of him. But we were in school together. He was a drummer, and we were in the jazz band together. And I remember he sort of started helping me with Classified Frequency. He was the original drummer. And we would do shows. We put a band together. We did some house shows. We did some, all the bullshit you do in college and frat parties and whatever. We understood each other. We understood what we were trying to do, which was, we come from a very heavy jazz fusion background. Why can't we throw that into pop rock music? And funny enough, years later, Dirty Loops did the same thing. And we were like, oh, shit. But we were more from the rock side, where they were more from the Michael Jackson side. Mike was sort of my, musical soulmate in that way. Me and him got each other. We understood exactly what we were trying to do. He would come into my dorm room, he'd be like, I have this idea, and he'd pick up my guitar, and he'd go, I hear a melody kind of starting like this, and the guitar kind of doing this thing. And I would go, ooh, that's interesting. And then he'd go, I gotta go to class. And he'd go to class, and an hour later, he'd come back, and I'd have the whole song written. So me and him sort of had this thing. Demos, the first recordings of songs, went out on MySpace, if you remember that thing, in 2005. That's technically when all of this was an actual entity. I graduated college with the whole idea of to keep this thing going, and it just fell apart. Everybody graduated, everybody sort of went off and did their own thing. Mike moved to LA, and then I found out very quickly that all the musicians that I needed had to have a certain level of competency that I was not finding. Not to say I'm the prodigy or anything like that. I don't like to explain myself. So if I give you a song and you don't know what's going on, I'm immediately like, okay, moving on. I will find somebody else who can do this. I don't want to explain this. So it turned into like, I really wanted to do it, and then it just wasn't working as a band. So then I sort of went like, well, I should record. And I didn't know how to record. I didn't know anything. I didn't have any money. I had a degree in jazz. The fuck's that gonna do? And so I basically locked myself into my basement and learned how to record a record. It just was like, all right, let's see if I can figure this out. The Heart Attack EP came from that. That was 2009. That was 4 songs. It was supposed to be 8 songs, but I had no idea what I was doing. And then I had 4 songs that were like, these don't suck, I guess. And when I remember when I recorded those songs, one of my biggest idols in the world was a guy named Jamie Wolford, who was in a band called The Stereo. By the time that EP was done, he had another band, The Stereo had broken up, and he was producing like every band in like Arizona. Like, he was literally producing every record that was coming out of Arizona had his name on it. And I just kept tabs on him because I just thought he was brilliant. And so when I finished the Heart Attack EP, I was basically like, I just want to record something good enough to where he might want to mix it. And so I sent it to him, and he mixed it. And now he's mixed literally everything we've done, including our latest thing, Kiri. And he's become a great friend and mentor. And, you know, anytime, I know a million engineers and I know a million producers and mixing engineers and everything. I don't give a fuck what any of them say. If I have a problem, I call Jamie. He's my guy. I go, Jamie, I need your help. And he's always there. So I love Jamie, and Jamie's been around, you know, since 2009. So yeah, and that's basically what happened. We put that out, and then I started getting the itch to put a band together again. And so I knew some people at this point. I had been playing long enough with other bands and cover bands and other original bands that I put a band together with a couple friends of mine, Nick Kirk, who I went to college with on drums, and a guy named Rob Richmond on bass. And we had a blast. We had a good time. It was like very power trio, Marvelous 3 sort of thing. We played all your favorite Van Hagar tunes. What else did we do? We played The Darkness. We played Extreme. We played fucking Decadence Dance, which didn't make any sense with Classified Frequency, but we liked it. It's like, this is really weird. But we had a good time. We played some shows, we toured a little bit. Andy came into the fold, Andy Hamburger, our amazing drummer. He came into the fold after Nick. I love Nick. Nick was a great drummer, but you know, we were having issues in the band, and things were just, you know, happens in bands. And sadly I had to let him go. And then we brought in Andy. Andy I knew from a band I was in, and Andy could play anything you threw at him.
I was playing in a band that I was recording for, and called Side Effects, and the leader had a live band that she was using, and Matt was the bass player for that. So when I started, I think it's around 2008, I started playing with her live. I met Matt, and Matt and I became more friends and enjoyed playing together. And turns out Matt had his own band and wrote his own music. He was playing bass in that band, but in Classified Frequency, he plays guitar and sings and writes all the songs. So, you know, I was like, wow, this bass player says he has a band, you know, and then he asked me to start playing in it, and I started learning the tunes and realized how intricate things were. And that's how we met. I've been playing with him ever since.
You know, if you'd ever seen us, we would throw in like fusion instrumentals. We wouldn't take anybody on a journey, you know. We didn't want to lose the 15-year-olds and the, you know, who were coming to see us. But we would throw in these things. And so it was always really important to me to have musicians who, if I said something completely out of left field, they knew where I was coming from and they could go. And Andy was that guy. Andy could play anything, and we could go from fucking the Brecker Brothers to Slipknot. He could do all of it in between. that was Andy. At this point, I was trying to do another record. I had gotten a little bit of confidence from the first EP, and it just wasn't happening. It just wasn't happening. I don't know, I think I just felt too much stress on my shoulders or something. I wasn't happy with anything that was happening. So I started thinking seriously about, like, maybe I'm a performer. That's what I do. Maybe I need a producer. Maybe I need somebody who has the vision and can take it the other way, and all I have to do is show up and play. Maybe this is a good idea. And during the first trio, the reincarnation, I guess, of Rob and Nick, we played a gig at Jam and Java. It was like a battle of the band sort of thing. And I remember Jim Ebert was there. He was one of the judges. And Jim, amazingly enough, emailed me after that show, out of the blue, and said, I really liked your set. It reminded me a lot of a band I used to produce called The Marvelous Three. And I went, wait, what? Holy shit. And so yeah, he produced Marvelous Three's Hey album. He produced Butch Walker's Letters. Andy knew him really well. Andy plays drums in his studio sessions all the time. So I had just written a song called Have a Nice Day, which is probably one of the meanest songs I've ever written. And amazingly enough, that song has probably the most lyrics I've ever written, and they came out in like 15 minutes. I was like, maybe I shouldn't say much about that. Anyways, breakups are hard. So I wrote this song called Have a Nice Day. And I sent it to Jim, and he loved it, and he wanted to do it. And so that's when me and Jim started working together. And that's where I met Sean Russell, who's been our engineer forever, probably 15 years, at least 15 years, I think now. Jim has been around for 15 years. Yeah, I started working with them, and I learned so much in the studio from them. So we've been doing a bunch of stuff with them, and then there were a couple times where I would do stuff on my own. So we did an EP called the Reach Out EP. We started recording a bunch of songs that have not come out yet. They'll come out at some point. But we recorded a bunch of songs, and then we released Have a Nice Day as a single with a video. And I remember we couldn't get anybody to talk about it. It was like, back then, it was sort of like people were starting to do the single thing, but the only way to get anybody to talk about it was it had to be a compilation still. Like, people wouldn't talk about a single yet. They would still go, oh, we're not gonna talk about it, whatever. So then we decided to record a Cheap Trick cover called Reach Out, because one of the things me and Jim did was, when we first met, we just geeked out about how much we loved Cheap Trick for like 2 hours. And I was like, yep, this is the guy for me. And we put Reach Out, Have a Nice Day, and Over You together and called it an EP so that we could get some sort of, place to talk about it. And that worked. People started talking. We could get people to talk about things and whatnot. And that was, Andy played drums and all that stuff. Rob was still in the band. It was me. And then we're playing shows. We played a ton of shows. We played all up and down the East Coast and everywhere. We opened for 1 million people. And then a guy named Frank Grholski, who's a friend of mine, he wanted to join the band. He loved the band. And he was like, I just want to be the rhythm guitarist. I'll play some of the synthesizers and stuff. And I said, sure. I played with him enough. I was like, this will be great. We'll have 2 great guitarists, and we can do, stupid things, and it'll be fun. And so we brought him in, so it became a quartet. Played everywhere and for everybody. We opened for Gin Blossoms, Cowboy Mouth, Everclear, Vertical Horizon, Fastball. we opened for everybody. At one point, Rob decided to step away, so his sub was one of my best friends, a guy named Matthew Everhart, who I met in the band I met Andy in. That's how all three of us, how the three of us sort of became a unit.
My direct relationship with Matt comes from the drummer, Andy Hamburger. Andy and I had worked on several projects through the course of the first time period of me being in the DC, Baltimore area. And then we were both on I subbed as a bass player for Matt in a group called Side Effects. And then Matt ended up moving into the guitar chair, and so then we ended up being in a band together. And Matt liked my bass playing, and we all got along really great. And he was like, hey, I've got this original music project, and sometimes I need a sub. Would you be into checking it out? He sent me the stuff, and I was like, what the fuck is this? It's like, it's wildly poppy, but also really complex. Like, his chord structures are really harmonically interesting, but then it's still like, fast pumping, like pop punk stuff. So I was just really excited to do something that felt a little more complex, but still like really commercial at the same time. It turned me on, and I dove in head first, and eventually ended up being the guy.
Whenever Rob couldn't do a gig, Everhart would do the gig. And so I called him one day. I said, hey, do you want to be the guy? And he said, sure. So that was it. So Everhart's been with me for, I don't know, probably 10 years or so. We played everywhere, like I said, and we were doing all these shows. We made enough money to go in the studio again, and we did an EP called the Black Eye EP. That was the height of the 38 North, the studio, Jim Ebert, Sean Russell, Jamie Wolford sort of thing. That was sort of like, that was the first time we were able to come into the studio with like, these are the 4 songs we're gonna do, and we knew exactly like what we wanted to do with them. And so it's like probably the most complete, EP we ever did. And we haven't done another EP since. We've only released singles. But we did the Black Eye EP. That EP had a song that anybody who knows us for, affectionately called That Sex Song. It's called No More Sex. Nobody knows the song name. You guys do that sex song. And it was great because we would play it in festivals where people told us we could say whatever we wanted. And so they would, I'd always be in front of all these 13-year-olds singing about not wanting to have intercourse in a public restroom. It's like, and then the parents would be like, oh, that's nice. And then they'd want my t-shirt, and I'd be like, yes, got him. But that EP had No More Sex on it, which we did a video for. We did 2 videos with my good friend Ben Powell, who I was in a band with, and No More Sex was probably like one of the best videos we ever did. He did an amazing job with that, and still, one of our, proudest moments. And we were nominated for a bunch of awards, whatever the hell that means. There was a good couple years where we were doing a lot, we were playing a lot. A lot of people sort of knew who we were. People were talking about us in the region and stuff like that. Things happened. We sort of stopped playing live, mainly because I just couldn't afford it anymore. I was paying all my guys, and and when you open for all these big acts, they don't pay you anything. So you might be playing for a couple thousand people, but you're not getting any money. We sort of took a step back from playing, and then COVID happened. And then I just, again, locked myself in the studio. The other thing we're probably most known for is DuckTales, that's a thing. I always felt bad because my producer, Jim, posted something on Facebook one time promoting one of the songs he worked on with us, and somebody commented, did you work on DuckTales? And he didn't work on DuckTales. I was like, oh no, that's the worst, that's the last thing he wants to hear. But we did DuckTales. We released that in 2020. That was all done by me.
Matt was the bass player in Honey Extractor, a cover band that we were all part of for a while, and eventually approached me on this because he needed someone that would do kind of keyboard synthy stuff and some guitar stuff as well.
We released Cut the Trachea in 2021, which was supposed to be on the Reach Out EP, but I wasn't really happy with the mix, so we got it remixed by Jamie. And then we did Can't Run Away in 2022, which is probably one of the first songs I ever wrote, amazingly enough. It took almost 20 years for that song to come out. And then we'd been playing it live for years and nobody knew what it was. And then 2024, we put out No Point of View, which we did a video for that one, and Can't Run Away, with Ken Lasso, who's amazing. And I was in a band with him too. That's how we meet. And then 2025, here we are with Kiri. So, and amazingly enough, it's been like 20 years since we've put this whole thing together. And we're still here. We might not be playing a bunch and we might not be doing as much as we used to. And I don't jump up and down on stage anymore or do pick tricks or lick the guitar. But, you know, we're still here, we're still putting out music, and we always will. So it's been a fun, looking back on it, it's been a fun ride.